The Galaxy S25 series look more cohesive and part of a family than they ever have before. But when you break these two devices down, the gap is wider than it's ever been. But why though? Let's go. The Galaxy S25. It's cute, premium, and compact, and awfully powerful for a device of its size. But should you buy this, its bigger sibling, the S25 Plus, or the dominating one in the lineup, the Galaxy S25 Ultra? Let's find out. Design is going to be a really hard one to compare these two devices on, mainly because of size. Where obviously the S25 Plus will sort of be as part of this discussion as well. I just don't have one. Because realistically, if you are choosing on size, you wouldn't be deciding between the Ultra and this. You'd sort of be deciding between this and the Plus if a big phone is what you're after. But if you're thinking of downsizing from a big phone to a small one, there's some differences to talk about. First one is the weight. This is a substantially heavier phone by roughly 50 or 60 grams. This just feels so light. It's like a throwback. It's similar, in my opinion, to like the Galaxy S6 from 10 years ago now. Jeez. But because of what Samsung have done with the Ultra this year, despite the weight difference, the in-hand feel is very, very similar. You've got the flat sides, you've got the rounded corners. Feels very much part of the family, and there's a bit of cohesion with the in-hand feel with the lineup. Matte glass on the back as well kind of leads into that too. Even the camera rings have that similar look about it with the black sort of things stuck over the top. Again, I like it. But there are two design differences that you should know about, and they are both related to the materials of the phones. The S25 and S25 Plus use an aluminium frame. So it's the same color as the phone's glass on the back. And I mean, you don't really notice a feel difference. There's maybe a slight difference in feel, but it's just a different material because the S25 Ultra uses titanium, and the color of the titanium doesn't match the color of the glass, if you wanted to know that. The titanium ensures strength, but also maintains a lightweight feel. And with a phone of this size, that's kind of important. For a phone of the size of the S25, you won't need to worry too much about lightweight because it's already light enough as it is, and it's already plenty durable. The other material difference is the display. The S25 Ultra has the Gorilla Glass Armor 2 and the anti-reflective coating. The Galaxy S25 does not. In so many situations, this is an advantage of having, whether that be indoors, whether that be outdoors, or just sitting flat on a table. The difference is so noticeable to your day-to-day usage. Blacks appear more defined, and the contrast of color is way more intense, which is great because you can actually see the different colors that don't kind of blend in together. The S25 still has an incredible display. Watching content of this will be great. It's got minimal bezels. It's got really sharp colors. You won't be disappointed because this is how phones have always been. But because you use your display for literally everything, like viewing all your apps, taking your photos, it's so important to have the display be the best it can be. And the anti-reflective coating makes a huge difference to the display experience. So if you are someone who values display, the Ultra could be the one for you. The cameras are next. And for me, this is where things kind of really start to separate. I don't really think the output is the discussion to have. A lot of people will want to know what's the difference. I'll put up some photos now and you could sort of see if there's any output differences for yourself. It's not worth nitpicking because ultimately the discussion around the cameras isn't about the output that you get. It's the hardware and flexibility of what they can do. The Ultra has always had the better hardware. From when the S20 Ultra came out, there was a clear separation in hardware. The S20 series or the base models kind of, I guess, caught up with some hardware, especially when it introduced the 50 megapixel main camera. But that was it. Since then, the S22 series, it's stayed the same. Feels like they've given up upgrading the base models because it's got the same ultra wide, the same 1x, and the same 3x from 4 years ago. So 4 years ago? 2025. 3 years ago. I'm getting ahead of myself. I can understand Samsung wanting that separation between the Ultra and the base model. I get it. It's a really important distinction to make. You want people to know what your best camera hardware is on a smartphone, and you want them to have an upgrade path to sort of achieve that. When you consider S22 users are upgrading, they're probably in the upgrade cycle of 36 months, they're getting the same camera hardware 3 years later. There is a wider discussion about the customer base of the base model phones that I will talk about later at the end. I'll save that to the end of the video. But let's break down the hardware differences because they're substantial. The S25 Ultra has a 50 megapixel ultra wide with dual pixel autofocus capabilities that gives you macro capabilities as well. The S25 and S25 Plus have a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera with no macro, no dual pixel. At least I don't think there's dual pixel. The S25 Ultra has a large 1 in 1.3 inch 200 megapixel main camera with quad pixel autofocus versus the S25, which has a small, by today's standards, 50 megapixel main camera with only dual pixel autofocus. You then have two old 3x telephoto cameras at 10 megapixels each. The difference being that the S25 Ultra has dual pixel autofocus on their 3x telephoto versus none on the S25. And this kind of serves a purpose on the Ultra because it's like an in-between camera between the 1x and the 5x, whereas this is it on S25. This is the only telephoto camera that you've got. And then that flexibility comes into play where you have a 50 megapixel 5x telephoto on the S25 Ultra that gives you an incredible range of zoom and just that increased flexibility of what a smartphone camera system can offer you. And it completes the Ultra camera experience. I am not advocating for the 200 megapixel camera to be on the Galaxy S25. I think it's unreasonable, but I'd see no reason why the 50 megapixel ultra wide and a 50 megapixel 3x telephoto couldn't be on here. It would go down a treat and it would provide the users a nice upgrade path and a story to be able to tell, especially when you could put a marketer's hat on. There could be some complexities around design, which maybe are limiting Samsung's choice for upgrading those cameras and space internally, but that is where I guess performance discussions can start to take place. The good news is that the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy that's on here is also on here globally. Samsung have decided not to use Exynos anywhere in any part of the world for their base models this year, which is great news because there's a consistent experience across all models. Again, not that I'm advocating against Exynos, it's just consistency is always better than not consistent. What that means is that the S25 doesn't miss out on some of the new camera features that are on here, like log video recording and the new HDR toggle. They still are over here. Strangely enough though, there's still no 4K dual recording or 4K 120 in Pro Video mode on the Galaxy S25 where there is over here. I've got a small theory that maybe heat dissipation isn't as good with the bigger vapor chamber over here and the larger surface area. Just guessing. But the rest of the phone, the performance gives a singular, consistent experience. One UI 7 hums like a dream on here. All the interactions, all the animations, very, very fluid. And again, it's sort of, as I said about this, one of the smoothest interactions you'll find on a smartphone right now. All of the same Galaxy AI features exist and they operate with the same speed and performance. I did object removal using generative edit and it restored my hand in pretty much the same amount of time on both, which is great. The only thing you miss is the option to use sketch to image with the S Pen because you can use it, just have to use your finger, and it didn't quite work out for me on the Galaxy S25. It thought I was doing something inappropriate. The other performance metric, which a lot of people like to talk about, is battery. The S25 has a 4,000 mAh battery, but the decision by Samsung not to opt for the new silicon carbon technology in the S25 series this year has probably limited their ability to upgrade things like the camera on the base models. Because if they used it, I guarantee you'd probably have more space internally to do more here. I imagine internally they have their reasons for it, whether it's a technical one or whether it's a cost one. No one knows the answer to that. The only evidence we have is that when they have pushed limits on battery before, Galaxy Note 7, it has ended up costing them billions of dollars. So it's probably a bit of both. And the question at the end of everything, why is the gap so much wider between these two phones than it ever has been before? I can answer that. It's because the target consumer for the Galaxy S25 doesn't care. They don't pay attention to the numbers on a spec sheet. They walk in after 3 years of owning a phone and they go, what's the latest Samsung at the price I'm paying now? It's this one. Great, I'll have that. Don't ask any questions. Don't do any research. They just gladly take the new phone, no questions asked. Very similar story with iPhones and the iPhone base model series. That is where the mass market consumer, and that's how they shop. It just is. They just want a dependable camera setup and they want it in a phone that is similar operating to how they've had it before. That's what this is. And then for anyone that wants more, the Ultra exists. This is targeted at the consumer that wants the best available that Samsung has to offer with camera, with display, with battery, pen, performance, all in one package. That's who Samsung target with this phone. Even if on a global scale, when compared to other hardware competitors, Samsung haven't quite delivered that. But in their ecosystem, it's still the best one. The absolute bottom line is if you want a really solid phone that takes great photos, good for videos, has a really good software offering with nice Galaxy AI features, S25 and S25 Plus is an easy choice. But if what is on here isn't enough and you still want to stay within Samsung, then you go the Ultra. There's a thing to be said that if Samsung just improved the cameras on here just a little bit, like the suggestion I made earlier, then maybe Ultra customers might step down into the base models. That could be what Samsung is worried about, and maybe that's why we haven't seen such advancements in the base model for a few years. Let me know what you think. Let me know why Samsung have kind of held back the base models, particularly when it comes to camera. Everything else, Full HD Plus display, 2600 nits of brightness, it's got a lot going for it. Let me know in the comments regardless. Hit subscribe to Tech with Benefits for more comparisons like this and other Samsung related content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. You!